Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how to create this dashboard, this very clean and pro level dashboard in Figma. So I'm also going to show you how to create this hover effects and add all these effects. So don't go anywhere, stay tuned. So here we have our colors, and these are the main colors that we're going to be using for the project. And here I also added a description that the plugin that we're going to be using to bring in these styles is the foundation color generator. And then we have like the status color, which is like our error state, success state, and the pending state. And we're also going to use the foundation color generator to bring this in. And finally, this is like our gray colors. I classify them on that order. So one thing about the gray color, why I didn't actually put any plugin here, if you notice, is because I want to have control of how I use the gray colors within my project. So I'm not going to be using the foundations color generator to bring it in. So the next thing is our logo. So this is like the company logo. So it's a fictional brand. Obviously, it's a fictional company. So if you look, this is almost similar to the logo I used for the other free spay dashboard. And this is like the digital assets. So this is going to come in handy when we are creating our tables, where we're going to be adding different stocks. And this is like the typography. So we are using Inter for this. And probably when you get access to these documents, you actually just look at it properly and see the descriptions and how I actually segmented them. So now another thing is our icons. So I actually divided the icons into different sizes. So we have 24 pixels, we have 20 pixels, and we have 16 pixels. So one thing to note is that I got these icons from the huge icons library. So in case you are wondering where I got the icons, or you need the icons, or you need nice icons like this, if you have seen most of my previous video, you will notice that I use huge icons a lot. You can get these icons from the huge icons community file on Figma, or you can as well just right click, and I think they also have like a plugin. So this is the huge icons library. You can also get that there. So now the first thing we are going to do, since we've gone over everything that we are going to be using for this project, so let's quickly make these icons a component. So now select this drop down here, create multiple components. Same with this. Make sure you click on this little drop down arrow here. Create multiple components, and finally, let's do for this aspect too. So let's hit the drop down, create multiple components. So let's check. Let me check if these ones two are already a component. Okay, so let's quickly make them a component. And let me check also if this is a component. Okay, it's a component, so we don't need to do anything to this. So the next thing we are going to do is to quickly bring in our color styles. So let's quickly do that. So let me use the foundations color generator to do that. So make sure anytime you come here, you use material. I like to use the material profile. So we're just going to pick the colors one after the other. Let me pick this first. So I'm going to pick this first, and I create style. And then, oh no, let me pick from here, sorry. So now, one thing that you notice about this, we are not going to bring in this color because if you go down over here, it's almost the same color. So there's no need bringing it. In fact, it's the same color because I was the one that actually created the color palette. So it's the same color with this last one over here. So we are just going to bring in just this blue. Let's make sure it's appearing over here. So let me click outside and check. All right, so the blue is already there. So let me click on this one. So let's add, let me push this here. And then create style. Make sure that it has appeared there. So the next thing now, we are going to now add this one also. So I'm just going to select this. So for this, I'm going to name it success. And I'm going to create styles. Let's make sure that it has created. Okay, it's there. And then the next one that we're going to bring in. So we're going to name this error slash cancelled. Or since, let's just name it cancelled. Let's make sure that that one has appeared there also. So the final color, so feel free to explore different color for your warning. I'm just going to use this because I don't want to think too much about it. But feel free to actually explore different color shades for this particular warning. So let me see if that has appeared there. Okay, so we already have it there. So we are done with that. So we are now going to manually add our gray colors. So to do that, let me close foundations. Now let's now go over to this place and add our black color. So I'm just going to add the black color and then name it black. Create style. Then let's add the next color. So we're going to name this gray and create style. And then we're also going to add the next one. So we are going to name this stroke. So this is the color we are going to be using for all our stroke. And this is going to be our BG color. That's for the dashboard. And finally, we're going to add our white color. So let's name this white. And let's just click on F here. So now we are done setting up the colors. So the next thing now we're going to do now is now go over here and bring in our frame. So I'm going to click on this. And for this, we're going to be using the desktop frame. So now we're going to rename this to investment tracker. So I'm going to name this investment tracker. So let's quickly change it to our background color. Let's change it to our background color. Now that we have our background color. So it's now time to set up our layout. So to set up our layout, the first thing we are going to bring in is our side drawer. And for our side drawer, the width for our side drawer is 240. And I'm going to push it to the right. And then we are going to change the color of this to white because it's going to be white. And then we are going to add stroke to the right hand side of it. So let's go and use our stroke color. And then let's change this to right. So you see like this light line, the stroke color that we have there. So that's what I want to have for this. So that's that for that. So let's rename this quickly. Let's name this side drawer. I kind of like calling it side drawer though. Or you can call it sidebar, whatever thing you want to call it. So the next aspect of our project is the main area. So this is where we are going to host every other thing. Not every other thing per se. I mean the nav bar and the page content. So now that we have this, we're just going to quickly rename this to main and then push this side drawer to the top. And inside the main, we are going to have two sections. We are going to have our nav bar. So let's quickly create our nav bar. Let's quickly create the skeleton of our nav bar. And let's push it to the top and let's change the height to 80 because that's what I want to have for the nav bar. So we're going to call this nav bar. And finally, the last thing we are going to add is the page content area. So this is where the content for this page is going to appear. So let's make sure that there's no space between them. So I'm going to quickly rename this to page content. So I'm going to add auto layout to this. Okay, let me quickly see. Anytime you see this symbol here or this icon, it means that this is in absolute positioning. So we don't want it to be in absolute positioning. Anything that is in absolute positioning means it's not responding to auto layout. We're going to use this when we are creating our charts, but we don't need absolute positioning here. We want this to respond to auto layout. So let's see if he has any padding. Let's quickly remove any padding he has. We don't want any padding here or any gap. So this is just what we want. I think it has stretched. Okay, so let me quickly push this down so it can actually stay proper. So now we have this and we have this. So this is the nav bar, this is the content area. So anytime you're creating your nav bar, you don't necessarily have to add auto layout to this, but I just wanted to add auto layout to this so that I can control the whole layout, whatever way I want it to go. You understand? So now, anytime you want to create your dashboard, the first thing is to create your frame, which is like the main frame. The next thing is your side drawer, then the main frame. Then the main frame is going to host your nav bar. You see, as I'm clicking on it, it's highlighting the frames. So now, then the final one is now the page content. So under the page content, we have every other thing, like the content of that particular page. So now that we've gotten this far, let's now go into adding content to this dashboard now. So the first aspect of this project that we're going to work on is the side drawer. So I mentioned something in the previous video that whenever you're creating your dashboard, that you should also always put in mind that your side drawer or your sidebar is going to be a component, because you don't want to create, like, let's say you're working on a project that has like over 1,000 pages, and then you want to edit a particular page link text or the color or anything, and you have to manually have to change that for the entire project. It doesn't make sense. It will waste time. It's actually not very efficient or a productive way to actually build out a project. So the best way to always do it is to create a component for your sidebar and also for your nav bar, because they are going to be everywhere on your project. So you have to make sure that you can have like a place where you can control them, without having to go over the entire project to edit it. So for this, let's quickly create a frame that will host the logo. And since our nav is 80, that's our nav bar. Our nav bar is 80 height. We give the nav bar a height of 80. So we're going to maintain the same height here. So now that we've done this, now let's quickly go and bring our logo. So let me quickly copy that. And then select the frame and paste it. So now we're going to rename this to logo placeholder. Oh, I guess I didn't spell the place correctly. All right, so there we have it. So now that we are done with that, let's quickly make it an auto layout, and make sure it's still the 80 pixels is still consistent there. So let's stretch this, and then okay, I like this. I like the fact that it's already in 20. So we want the margins on the right and left, or the padding on the right and left should be 20. That's what we want. So I'm going to remove this. We don't need any gap for this. It's kind of like irrelevant. So the next thing that we're going to create now is our page links. So to create our page links, let me quickly create a frame that will host the page links. And let me rename it page links. So this is where all the links for the pages are going to appear. So now let's create a frame for the page link. And let's name it link. Or let's say PG_link. Let's name it page link. So now that we have it, so our page link, the corner radius is going to be 8. And then let's quickly bring in an icon. So let's copy this and go over here and paste it. So now I'm going to push it to the center. And give it a distance of 12. So finally, I'm going to add oh, you know what? Let's bring this out so we can see what we are doing. Let's bring the page link out. Let me change the color to white. So I'm just going to add text. So this is going to be overview. So the font for this is going to be 14 regular. And then I'm just going to apply auto layout to this so that I can properly edit the layout. So I'm going to change the gap. So you see the pink highlight. So I think 12 looks too much. Let's just reduce it to like 8. Let's see how that looks. And then the top and bottom padding is going to be 12, and the right and left is going to be 12. All right, so this looks cool. So let me just increase it a bit. So since we have this now, the next thing we are going to do is to change the color. So let's quickly change the color to our orange color. Oh no, I'm not supposed to add it under the fill, so I'm supposed to add it here under the color selection. It's already indicating that there's a gray color there, so I'll just have to change it from here. So now that we have this, and then we're going to create different states. So this is like the default state where nothing has been done to it, like nothing has, like a user has not interacted with it or anything. So I'm just going to make it a component and create a variant. So since this is the state where nothing has happened to it, then this will be the hover state, and finally this will be the active state, which is when the page has been selected, or the user, this is probably like a subtle highlight to show that this is the page that is currently selected. So that's what this particular last one will be. So now let's rename them. So this is already default, and let's call this hover state. And finally, let's call this active page. So let me just call it active page. So now the next thing I'm going to do, so for the hover, I'm going to give this our BG color. For the hover state, it's just going to change to the BG color. Then for the highlighted states, we are going to change it to a pastel color. Let's check 100 and see. I think this other one is better. So, and then we are going to change this to semi-bold. So it's a little different from what we have. So, and the black color, I'm going to change it to our regular black, and I'm going to change this to semi-bold. And also for this and this, the black, I'm going to change into the regular black that we have. So we don't need to add anything. Let me click outside and let me edit it from here. Or let's just change it to gray. I don't want to have it black. Let's change this to gray. All right. Or when they hover on it, it should turn to black. So we'll experiment that shortly, but let's just keep building. So now that we've done that, now let's hold Alt and drag this inside of the page link frame. So you see the page link frame is already highlighted. So now we're going to duplicate this. Now after duplicating this, then we select the main frame and then apply auto layout to it. Distance between this and the top padding is going to be 0. We don't want any padding there. Likewise, under here, we don't need any padding here. Or you can edit it down here. And then on the sides we want 20, and then we're going to stretch it. And make sure that it's centered it's aligned to the left. So now that we have this, and we want the gap between these to be 8. So let's duplicate this, duplicate. And I want to also have like one more variant when, so let's duplicate it. So this will not have any icon. Let's turn off the icon here. This one is just going to be the header. Let's turn this off and let's change this to 12 medium. So this will basically be the header. So let's rename this to main menu. Main menu. So I think this looks too much. Let me change it. Oh, no wonder. Thought it's medium. I changed it to. Why does it keep going back to bold? Let's change it to regular and see. I think regular is too light. I think medium is preferable. All right, so we have turned it to medium. So what I'm just going to do is like this first one here, I want it to be the header. So I'm just going to change this to variant 4. Let's rename this to header. Menu header. So now that we have this, now we have overview, and the next one is investment tracker. And the next one is budget planner. And then we also have these to be reports. So we need one more, which is the linked accounts. So there's one more thing we need to do now. Now we're not going to add auto layout to the entire frame, to the sidebar. So let's add auto layout to this. And now I want the distance between this and this to be 20. So the gap will be 20 automatically also. All right, so let me quickly edit this. So this one here, we're going to have settings. So for the header, we're going to have like settings here. And then we're going to change this to help/support. And this will be settings. And then let's delete this so we don't need this anymore. And then let's quickly stretch this. So I'm just going to quickly stretch this. So now let's go back to the top. And yeah, so far so good. So now it's time to now make it a component. Let's push this to the side and make it a component. So don't forget your side drawer should always be a component. So now it's time to copy it. Where's the copy? All right, so it's time to copy it and we're going to paste to replace. You can use the shortcut Control Shift arrow, or use Command Shift arrow, anyone you want, or you come over here, or you just right click and actually paste to replace. So now the experiment I wanted to do, I wanted to actually check out the hover state. So let's quickly prototype the hover state. So we're going to change it to the hover. And now we'll just come over to this trigger, then just select it. And while hovering. So that's just simple as that. So one thing about hovering state, you don't have to drag it back to the other frame. It's just a one-way kind of like thing. So now let's quickly play this and see how it looks. Let's quickly preview this. So let's use Z to reduce it, and then let me remove this. So now let's see if it's working. Let's see if our hover state. So you can see that the hover state is working. Okay, we have one more error here, so I'm just going to delete it from the main component. So, but every other thing looks fine. And let's go back to our file. So now I'm just going to delete this last link here. We don't need it. So now I want to show you something. Now the reason why I paste this here is so that I will actually show you something. So one thing about those icons is that now that we have this, we can now easily swap this thing. First of all, let me change this to the active page because this is the page we are currently designing for. Let me change it to the active page. So now we have this. You see, any update I make here will automatically appear here. Once you edit it from the main components, which I created earlier, you see when I edited this, it reflected on this. So it's good to always create components so you don't have headaches or you don't spend unnecessary time trying to edit elements one after the other. So we are going to quickly change this icon. So for this icon, we are going to use, let's see the icons that are available that we can use. So don't forget, these icons, I got them from Huge Icons library. So I don't like the gray that popped out there. So you can see that it's Huge Icons Pro library that I used for that. So let's also change this. Let's quickly edit this. So you notice that every edit I make here reflects also here. Don't forget to create your components. So we're just going to pick them one after the other. So for our linked account, I'm just going to use this. So we're going to change the color also. Oh no, I don't even know why I selected there. Okay, let me rectify that. So for the help, we're going to use like an info icon. And then the settings, obviously, is the setting page, setting icon that we're going to use. So you see, every changes I made here also got updated. So updated this particular side tab. So now we are done with the side nav, which we did like a great work there. And let's preview that and see. So you see, it already looks good here. It looks very amazing. So I'm just going to change this. So if you don't want this to scroll the way it's scrolling right now, we'll just go over to prototype and then change it to fixed. So it's no longer scrolling. I'm trying to scroll, it's not scrolling. When we add other elements, we'll check it out. Hopefully I remember. But that will solve the issue. Just changing the position to fixed will already change the issue, so you don't have to bother. So I just pointed that out in case you might have that problem. It's very simple to solve. So the next thing we are going to work on now is the nav bar. So for the nav bar, we're going to bring the nav bar out. And don't forget, your nav bar should always be a component also, regardless. As long as it's called a nav, it needs to be a component. You shouldn't be designing navs that don't have components. It's not ideal. So for the fill, we are going to change it to the BG color, so we can see what we are doing. So the first thing that we are going to add, let's add our text. So we are going to add the text, which is like pages. Then we are going to duplicate it and duplicate it. So now this is going to be the divider, and this is going to be the title of the current active page. So now that we have this, we're just going to edit this. So this is going to be 16 bold. Don't forget, we're using Inter. I think I mentioned that already earlier. So we are going to change this to bold. And then for this and this, we're going to change it to our gray color. So this is going to be our gray color, and they're going to be 16 regular. Okay, it's already on 16 regular. So I'm going to select all this and add auto layout to it. And then we're just going to give it like a gap of 12 and see how it looks. I think 12 looks too much. 8 looks okay. I think this looks perfect. So now we're going to change this to our black color. We already have like a black color. So that's that for that. So I'm just going to select everything, and then I want the distance from the end to this to be 40. So I'm just going to do that. So let's center this properly. So let me confirm that this is 80. Okay, it's 80 actually. All right. So now the next thing we are going to bring in now, we're going to create the search bar. So we are going to give it like a width of 360. And then let's change it to white. Let's give it a white fill. And then give it corner radius of 100. I want everything to be cornered. And then I want to add like stroke to it. So now that we have this, the next thing we are going to do now is to bring in like the icon that we're going to use for this. So we will use like a search icon there. Let me quickly bring in a search icon. Let me select this to pick the search icon from here. And then I'll just add it. Let me just paste it here. And then push it to the side and center it properly. So, and then I'm just going to add like the search. So let me just quickly spell that out, search. So now that we have this, let me add like 3 dots in front. I don't know, I just like putting it. So I'm going to change this to regular. And then this should be 12 pixels. We're changing this to our gray color. And then center this properly and make sure the distance between this and this is like 12. I think 12 looks okay. So I'm just going to add auto layout to this and then still stretch it to 360. So let me quickly change the color of this to orange. And let's see. So I want the top and bottom to be like 12, and the size should be like 12 also. I think this looks amazing. So now we are going to duplicate this also. So, but in this case now, I'm just going to remove this. And then I'm just going to change this to hug. So now we already have like this. So I'm just going to duplicate this. And then select this, add auto layout to them. We're also going to do this one more. And for this, I'm just going to change this to hug. So we are currently editing this. So we are, I'm just going to, this will be for the user profile. So let me move this to the end. And now let's change these icons. So here we are going to have like the help icon. That's for customer support. And then also for this, we're going to change this to the notification icon. So let's change this to 10 and 10 and see how it looks. All right, so it's okay this way. I want it to have 40. You see the height of this is 40, the height of this is 40. I just want to maintain consistent height. That's why I reduced it. So we want to change this to our red color. Let's make it orange instead. This is to indicate that there's a notification. And then I'm going to paste to replace. So now that we have this, let me change this to center properly. And let me just change this to 8 and see. I think 8 works fine. But I don't like the padding here. It looks too, everything just looks too clustered. So I'm just going to edit that and just make it 12. At least to give this a breathing space. So we're going to change it to the drop down. Alright. So the next thing we're going to add, let's quickly add an image here. Let's go to Unsplash. So let's quickly search for portrait. I'll just select this. His face is not looking proper there. So let me try this. Okay, you know what? Anytime you have issues like this, there's another way in which you can actually edit it. So to edit it, you just come here and click on crop. And then let me move this a bit so that we can see. Then you just use your keyboard, just press the arrow key to bring his photo down. I think this works. So this is what we have. So now let me quickly change it. Let me rename this to, let me change this to my name. All right. So with that, I think we are done with that. So the next thing we're just going to do, I want to make sure that the distance between here and the end of this is like 40 or so. Yeah, and then I'll just center this properly. All right, so here we go. So now we are done with editing the nav bar. So let me quickly make it a component so I can copy and paste inside of our main frame. So let me copy it, paste to replace. So I'm using the shortcut here. So let's move it to the top. So this is what we currently have. And so let's just continue then. So the next thing that we're going to work on now is our page content. So we are going to work on the page content now. To work on the page content, Remember in the last video, someone asked, I think I got a couple of comments, like probably like 1 or 2 comments about me using grids for my page container. So for this video, I'm going to show you how to use grid. But the main area where I normally use grid is for the page content. So for the page content, we are going to use layout grid here. So I'm just going to change this to column and change this to 12. And then we're going to have our margin as 40 for this video. And then we're going to leave our gutter at 20. So I think the gutter at 20 doesn't look bad. I think it's okay. So now that we have that, the next thing I'm just going to do, I'm just going to create our first card. So the first card is going to be like in 3. So it's going to contain these 3 columns. So let me change the color to our blue color. So we are going to change the color to this 900, and the corner radius is going to be 12. So now that we have this, so the distance between this and the top, I want it to be 20. So we're going to keep it at 20. And here, make sure it's 40, not 42. And make sure that it laps properly here also. But don't worry, we are still going to use auto layout to actually brush things up. But for this, just to maintain accuracy. So let's create our first card. So after creating this card, since you see the other cards that follow this are also going to be of similar pattern. So I'm just going to create this first one and then make it a component and create a variant that will actually be used to edit the other ones. So let's quickly create this first. So for this, I'm just going to create let's create a frame instead so that I can host the icon. So I want this to be 48. And then I'm going to change this to white color. So I'm going to do the white color manually here because I want to change the opacity. And then I'm going to change this to 100. So it has like rounded corners. And then the paddings, I'm just going to leave it at 20. So let me push this so that I can just use shift and the arrow key to actually move it. So now that we have this, the next thing we're going to do, let's just copy one of these icons and just paste inside of it instead of having to go over looking for icons. So I used the keyboard shortcut to copy it, and then I'll just paste it. And then I'm changing the icons size to like 24. Then center it properly and change the color to white. Oh, I made that same mistake again. So I'm just going to clean this and go over down here, change it here because it's already showing that this was selected. So now that we have this, let's rename this to icon. And then let's name this card. So for the icon, let me quickly swap the icons to a wallet icon because that's what we use here. So now that we have this, the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in the text for the header. So the header that we are going to have here is total portfolio value. So we are going to change this to medium. So it's just okay as 12. So now I'm going to leave this at 24 and then closing the gap. And then I'm just going to drag this to duplicate it. And then let's just leave this at 8. And I'm going to change it to, let's just say 112.040. And I'm going to make it bold. And then we're just going to add one more value. So I'm just going to I used Alt to actually access this, Alt plus dragging it to duplicate. So now let's use plus. So the value that we're going to add here, so it added plus 4.9%. And this is going to be 12 medium, very okay. So we are going to use the auto layout shortcut, which is Shift A, and add some padding around it, like 4 4 around it. And then I'm just going to change the fill color to 500 and change this to 100, you know. So I think this should be 8, you know, so it looks balanced. And then I'm going to select this and add auto layout to it. And then make sure we are maintaining, remove any padding, please. I don't need padding around it. And this, we're just going to leave this at auto. And make sure that the distance between this and this is 8. At least for me, that's what I'm using for this project. Sorry, auto layout to the entire frame. And add padding. So the left and right should be 20 also. All right, so this is what I want. So let me quickly drag this. Let me make sure it's aligned properly. So now that we have this, let's quickly make this a component. No. Let me drag this outside and make it a component so we can host every other card. So I'm going to drag this to this spot. Let me take it to the top a bit and create a variant of the same card. So for this, I'm just going to change this color to black. I don't like it as it looks white. I'm just going to change this to our black color. This is not what we are editing. We are editing this instead. So let me change this to black. And then we are going to change this to... Let's first of all change the contents, everything inside of this to be black. Yeah, so I'm just going to change this to white because the variant is going to have like a white PG. Yo. For this, we're just going to change this to this color. So let me just leave it at this. It's not too visible, so let me just add like 100, make it 100. So I'll just leave it at that. And then for this, I'm just going to change it to another color. So for the background color, I want the background color to be like this. So we're going to use this for the success. And then for this black, I'm just going to change the color to 500, the 500 value of this particular color. All right, so we have this. So let me quickly copy this. And let me draw a circle so I can just paste to replace. So we don't have to paste the card randomly, you know. All right, no. So now that we have this, I'm just going to make sure this is 40 here and 20 at the top. So since this is 20 at the top, I'm just going to duplicate it by dragging this and changing this to the light mode. And then I'll select both of them and add auto layout to it and make sure the gap is 20. Confirm that the gap is 20 and then I'm going to duplicate. All right, so I'm going to duplicate it. So you see it's 40 at the left and right. So it's very easy. You see, at least the dashboard is looking all good right now. Let's preview it. So you see how it looks now. So let's quickly edit these other cards and make sure that the value corresponds. So for now, I'm just going to turn off the grid because I'm done with this section. I just need to just edit the values before I turn on the grid again. So I'm going to first of all change this icon. And then we're going to rename this to amount invested. And then we're just going to, let's just put this as probably like 52K. And let's change this to 0 and probably leave this at plus 5,000. I think the color is okay, so we are going to move next to this, and then we're going to change this color to the orange, so the pastel color for this. Okay, this looks great. Then I'm going to change it to a chart color, so let's quickly swap. So you see how easy it is for me to not run around looking for icons or anything. I just swap them here. So that's one thing creating component does for you. I just want to make sure it has our colors. So if we're using gray, we're using gray. So the next thing I'm going to do is to change this to stock returns. And then I'm going to change this to also a random value, not really a real value. Probably let's just change this to like 82. And let's change this to this. And for this, I'm just going to give this a negative value. And then I'm going to change the shade of this to the error state. And then I'm going to change this to the 500 of the star. So now that we are done with this, the last thing we are going to do is to change this icon. Let's edit this one finally. And which icon did we use here? Let me quickly check the Bitcoin icon. And I'm going to change this to crypto returns. And let's just leave this at probably like 102. And leave this. Let's just leave this at what it is. So let's quickly check that one more time. So, okay. I think one last thing, we have not changed the color for this. So I'm just going to quickly change the color. So I think that's that for that section now. So now let's move over to the next section. Let's quickly create the chart. So to create the next layout, I'm just going to click on this and turn on our layout grid one more time. And then I'm going to change the fill to white. Where is our fill? So I'm going to change the fill to white. So let's make sure we maintain a distance of like 20, and same here, 40 here, then 20. And then let's make sure. So there are different formulas for actually giving space in this. Sometimes we have like the 3 3 3 3, then we have like the 8 4, and I think we have like 6 6 also. So it depends on how you want to divide your grids. So we have like different ways to divide the grid. So for this, we're going to be using the 8 4 for this particular layout that we want to achieve here. Is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Then the rest will be 4. So we use the 3 3 here. So that's 1 2 3 3 3 3, or you can use the 3 4, or you can use the 6 6. So it depends on which one you want to do. So for this, we just have like we're just going to be using the 8 4. So I'm just going to give it like a corner radius of 12 because that's the corner radius that we're using. So now I'm going to duplicate this, and this should fit in the 4. And then I'm just going to select both of them and add auto layout to it. And make sure the gap is 20. The gap is 20. So I'm going to turn this off. This is what we currently have. And finally, for the final layout that we're also going to be using is the same layout, but we are just going to have this at the other side. So now let's just add auto layout to the entire frame. I think it's time now to now add auto layout to the entire frame. So let's just quickly add auto layout to the entire frame. So this is what we currently have at the moment now. Let me preview that and see how it looks. All right, so this is what our layout looks like, having nothing on it. So this is currently what our layout looks like. I don't know if you can see the light boxes. So I think we are done with that. So the first thing first, we're just going to click this and select and add this, and we're going to rename this to portfolio growth over time. So we're going to use a padding of 20 in both sides. That's the top and the right and left padding. So we are going to maintain 20. And then the tests, I think I'll just have it at 18. Then bold, I think semi-bold is okay. And then we already have something similar up here. So I'm just going to copy this and come over here and paste it. So push this, and then 1, 2, 1, 2. So we don't need this icon here. That's the only thing that we don't need here. So I'm just going to change this to weekly. And I'm going to have like a gap of 4. And then we're going to have 8 at the top and 12 at both sides. So I'm going to select this and this and add auto layout to it. And center it, let it be centered. I think this is okay. So the next thing we are going to move into now is creating the chart. So to create the chart, we're just going to create some components so that we can edit things with speed. So I'm just going to create like a frame, and the frame is going to hold our text. So let's just name this like 320k, and this I'll make it 12 regular, so which is already what we have there. And then I'm going to add auto layout to this. No gap, we don't need the gap, and we don't need any spacing around it. I think this looks okay, but let's just change this to 40. I think this looks okay, and we change the alignment to the left. So I'm going to make this a component. Let me push it to the top so that if I want to edit anything, I can easily edit everything at once. So I don't have to edit them individually if I ever want to edit it, So I'm just going to select this and this, and then add auto layout to it. And let's just center it properly. And then I think 8 looks okay. 4 is too much. So let me see how this looks. So this is 20. Let's check so this is 700. I think I'll just make this 700 also, the width. And this will be fill. And I'm going to change this to our stroke color. And I'm going to edit this. Just click on this to edit it and change this to dash. So there we have it. So now that we have the second, so now we have the rows, which is like for the colon. So this is basically helping us create the structure for the the y-axis. So I'm just going to make this a component also and push it to the top a little. I'm going to drag them over to the component area very soon. I just want to keep them at the top there. So now I'm just going to duplicate this, then select both of these, add auto layout to it, and then change it to the gap to 16. So now that we have this, I don't think we need those ones again. I'm just going to move them to the auto layout panel, or where we have every other element. So I'm just going to add a frame there so I can see it. All right, so we are done with that. So I'm just going to come back here right now and push this. So let's keep this at 24. Let's see how it looks at 24. So let me just quickly change the values right now. So this is 160K. And this is like 80K. And this is 40K. And this should be 20. And then finally, we have 0. So I'm going to duplicate this, then duplicate this also. So it's not going to be possible to duplicate. So I'm just going to detach this entire last line. So I'm going to detach it so that I can create the y-axis. So I'm just going to copy one of this, copy it, and then paste to replace. And then once I paste to replace it, I then duplicate and then duplicate. So I'm going to hold this and add auto layout to it and give it gap of 24. And now we don't need this line over here anymore. Then we'll just keep duplicating this so we get to the end. I think this is enough. So now for this, we're just going to turn off the text inside of it. Let me turn the text off so we don't have this anymore. So I noticed something. I don't like the space here. I think it's too much. Let's go back to the main component and edit it. So we'll go to main component. And then I'm going to change this to 4. So I change the gap here to 4. Then I click on return to instance. So now I'm back here and this is what we have. Let's quickly play that and see how it looks. So it's looking all good. And then I'm just going to select and change the color of the text to gray. And then let me quickly edit this. So from this is going to be June 08. Let me copy that and paste 09. Or let's increase it in 2s. $14, $16, $18, $20, then 28. I think this looks okay. So now that we've gotten the basic structure of the chart, the next thing we are going to do is start drawing the trend line. So let me start again from scratch. I'm just going to slightly bend this. Just hold shifts and stretch it. So I'm not actually following any pattern. I'm just drawing random lines. So it's just to illustrate what we want to show here, nothing more. So I'm just going to push this down a bit. So I want the highest points to be here. All right, now, so we are going to push this inside. Let's call this chart structure. So this is going to be our x-axis. And all these other ones will be the y-axis. So now I'm just going to drag the trend line inside of here. So if you notice, it's going to distort the whole thing. So I'm just going to change it to absolute positioning so it doesn't respond to auto layout. So I can now place it properly inside of here. So this is what I wanted to do. So I'll then put it right inside of here. So now let's quickly change this to the orange color. And then let me change the thickness of this. Oh, it looks too thick. Let me change it to 2. I think 2 looks perfect. So I'll just stretch it a bit. So let's move this a bit also. And now let's add like a little indicator here. So I'm going to use an ellipse to achieve that. Let me just use an ellipse to draw that. So that indicator, we're just going to give it a sizing of like 8. And then let's change it to the orange color. And then I'm going to add the stroke to it. So the stroke will be like 4. Let's change it to outside. And then we're going to change it to white. We already have a white color, so there's no need to add it manually. So I'm just going to push it inside of here. So it's also doing the same thing. So I'm just going to use, change it to absolute positioning. So why it looks like this is because I added like outline to it. So I added outline to it. That's why it has this effect. That was the main reason why I added outline to it. So now we have something like this. The next thing we are going to do is draw a straight line moving from here downwards. So I'm just going to change this to a straight line. So I'm just going to draw a straight line that stops here. And then I'm going to change this to black and change this to dash. So it should just be dash colors. So we're also going to push this inside of the chart structure, change it to absolute positioning and center it properly, and then edit. what we want. Let me make sure this looks good. All right, so now that we have this, the last thing we are going to add is like the indicator displaying like the current amount it got to when it was at its all-time high. So for that, we're just going to create like a rectangle. Let me come down here and create like a rectangle. So we are going to use a rectangle to achieve that, a rectangle and a triangle. Let's keep this at 24. And then let's add a polygon, or basically like a rectangle. So now that we have this, we're just going to change this and then center it properly. And then use the Boolean operations to set it to union. And then I'm just going to add like corner radius of this. So the corner radius looks good. So lastly, I'm just going to add like a text on it. So the text is just going to be, let's just say at that all time it was like $150. $150K. So let me keep this at 10 and let me keep it at semi-bold. So we're just going to select this and this and center it properly. So now let's change this to our gray text, our gray color, and this we're going to change this to white. And then let's group this together and call it indicator. Or let's just change it to all-time high. So same thing, I'm going to push it inside of this chart structure and then change it to absolute positioning, center it, and then push it to the top. So now let's see how that looks. Okay, so this is what we currently have. So now that we have that, I'm just going to add auto layout to this entire. I'm just going to add auto layout to this. So since this is it, I'm just going to change this to fill, so it can fill the container. And the distance, I'm going to just change this to auto. So I think this looks good, but it looks too stretched. I don't really like that. So let's change this to a fixed distance of 32. And change this to hog, please. And then what's the height of this? The height of this is 305, so I'm just going to change this also to 305. So now we are done with this aspect. Let's cross-check and see if there's any other thing that we have not done. Let me quickly check the dashboard. So this is what we have so far. And our hover effect is still working. So we've been able to create all this so far. So what we are left with is just to create the portfolio breakdown and then learn a new finance term and then finally the recent transactions. So let's quickly move over to that. Let's quickly start working on that. So that's the next thing we're going to do now. So let's copy this. So I'm going to add auto layout to this and then paste that inside of this. reduce this right now. Or let's just change it to few and see how it goes. And then also change this to few. Alright, so we have this, and then we change this, the top and bottom. We change this to few also. That's the height to change this to few. And we maintain our 20 all-rounder. So I'm going to change this to portfolio breakdown. And we don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to delete it and then change this icon to the menu, more icon. So let's quickly swap it from here. So now to create our pie chart, let's quickly check that and make sure everything is intact. Okay, it looks good. So now let's go outside of here. And so the first thing we're going to bring in is an ellipse. And for this, we're going to change this to 180. And then I'm going to reduce this and reduce this. So for this, we're going to change this to 60. This is going to remain 60 all through. And then the first stuff that we have there is the stocks. And the stocks have like 55%. So we're going to leave it at 55% and just change the color. Where's the blue color? Let's just leave it here and let's push this a bit. So I'm going to duplicate this. So you see it's already indicated I duplicated it. So let me just quickly change the color so you can see that I duplicated it. And then we're just going to change it like this. And then I'm going to change it. This is 25%. We're going to now duplicate this, which I'll reduce. And then I'm going to change this. This one is going to be 15%. And then I'm going to change it to the orange color. So let's zoom in to make sure locks. So we're going to duplicate it for the last one. So for the last one, what we are going to have here, let me quickly make sure that it laps properly. So for the last one, we have it at 5%, which we have the color blue. All right, so now that we have this, we're just going to select all of this and group it. So let me just group it and name it pie chart. And then we are going to write purpose of it, which is like assets. So we're going to name it all assets. Yeah, just assets. Then I'm going to push it inside of this, which is push it inside the group. And then I'm going to center it properly. And this is going to be for 14 semi-bold. So I'm going to center it properly. So the next thing we are going to now do is now bring in all the data, pointing and actually talking about the pie charts. So this is going to be like 14. Let's just do for the rest, and then I'll start adding the colors. All right, so now I'm just going to write the text out. So what we have here is 55% stocks, and text color is going to be 12 medium. I'm just going to duplicate this, holding Alt. So I'm just going to duplicate this. So the next thing we are going to do, let's edit this one. So this one is 15% crypto, and this is like 25% real estate, and finally we have 5% ETF. So I'm just going to add auto layout to this, and I think the gap is okay. Gap should be let's leave it at 8. I think it looks cool. Okay, I think this maintained 8, so I'm just going to select this. And this also is going to be 8. Alright, so I'm just going to say assets. So I'm going to rename this as assets. And then we're going to select both of this. And then I'm going to add auto layout to it also. And then the distance should be like 20. So now that we have this, I can now just drag this and push inside of here. So now we're going to click this. And then everywhere we have white, we're just going to change it to, so let's select this and make sure that anywhere we have white, we can just change it to black. And then let's select the entire frame and change the layout. So the layout will be top and down. So I'm just going to change this. And then the gap is just going to be 32. So it will balance with this. So I don't see any reason why it should be even more than 32. Let's just change it. Let's change this. Let's change the gap to 24. And let's see how it looks. 24. And let me preview that. All right, this looks good so far. So now we've been able to complete these sections. So I think the only section we have now is just our recent transaction and then this final part here. So let me quickly continue so we can finish up on time. Anyway, let me just copy this entire frame. And then paste to replace. And then just change the details for this. Learn finance terms. Alright, now that we have that, so this icon here is basically for the more option. So now we can delete this one. And then I'm just going to draw a frame and then give it a BG color. And then the corner radius should be like 8. Is that even visible? Well, I think it is. So now we are going to create the icon frame. So let me quickly create that. So the icon frame is going to be 48. So let's just make it 48. And then change the color to orange. And then change the corner radius to 100. So it just gets round. And then let me pick the icon from here and paste inside of here. Alright, so let me center it properly. And let me quickly change the icon. Alright, so this is what we have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm also going to duplicate this and just paste to replace so that I can have this icon and just push it. Let's change this to our gray color. Let's change this to the gray color and click here to change it to the side arrow. I'm definitely going to solve that with auto layout, but let me just add the text. So what we have there, we have dollar cost averaging. So that's supposed to be our caption. So we are just going to change this to 16 pixels semi-bold. I think that's what it's gonna be. 16 pixels semi-bold. And then for the detail, we're just going to use Lorem Ipsum for the details. Well, let's get from content rules. So I'm going to go to text and Lorem Ipsum. So I'm just going to change the text to Lorem Ipsum. And now we're going to change this to, so this should be 14. And let me change this to regular. And then it looks very long, so I'm just going to reduce it. Let me try to reduce it from here. Probably change this to 400 and see. Still much. Let's change this to 40 and see. Yeah, so I can actually just stretch it properly. And then we are going to add, we're going to truncate the text. Yeah, so I want it in one line. So I'm going to add auto layout to this. And then the padding, the gap is like 8. So no padding. So now that I've gotten this, I know it's scattered. Let's use auto layout to now arrange it now. So let's just add auto layout to it and then change this to fill. Regular 20 and then padding of 20 also. So let's change this to fill. And then this, we're going to change this obviously to fill also. Alright. Then we're going to center this. And the gap, I want the gap to be like 12. So this is what we want. So now I'm going to duplicate and duplicate. So we're going to select the 3 of them, add auto layout to it, and change the gap to 16. And finally, we are going to change this to ETF and then the full pronunciation. So I don't want it to be in 2 lines, so I'm just going to reduce this. I think this is too much. This should be 14. Still looks way much, so I'll just reduce this to 12. What if we just reduce the padding? Let's just change this to 16, top and bottom, and 16. I'll just truncate this text then, because we don't want it. Or let's see how it looks in 2 lines. Doesn't look bad, but let's just truncate it. Alright, so this is how it looks when it's truncated. So we are done with that. Let's change this to our gray text before we move on. Let's change the text below it to our gray text. Alright, so this is what we currently have now. So we are done with every other aspect. Now, if you've made it this far, thumbs up to you. You're doing a great job and we have been here all this while. So let's finally move over to the recent transactions. So for the recent transactions, the first thing we're going to do, let me copy this at the top here and paste inside of here. So we don't have to start creating that again. So I'm just going to change it to recent transaction. And then we're going to change this to see all. And then let me quickly change the icon. Oh no, that's not the icon I want to change it to. Yeah, this is what I want to change it to. So now that we've gotten this, the next thing we're going to do now is to create our table header and the different variants, probably the table header with icon, without icon, and every other thing. So I'm just going to do it in a very simple, basic way that you will understand. There's no need for complex components, and all this naming stuff. So I'm just going to do it in a straightforward way. So the first thing we are going to do is to create the table header. So for the table header, let me quickly do that. So let me name this to table header. So the table header is going to have our background color, and I just add like auto layout to it, and we're just going to have like 16 at the top and bottom, and then we're also going to have like 20 by the sides. So let me quickly add some text to this. So now the text that we're going to have there is, let's just keep it as description. And then I want to add like a little icon there. So I'm just going to come over here and copy the icon. So I'm going to copy it and paste to replace here using the shortcut. And then I'm going to come over here and change the icon. All right, so this is what we currently have. And let me change this to 14 semi-bold. All right, so this is what we have. So I'm just going to change this to our gray text. And now we have this. So the next thing we are going to do is now the body. So let's make this a component. And I'll create a variant for the body. So we are going to have different states. So we are going to have like the one with icon and the one without icon. So I'm going to change this to, let's go back. And this is where we now need the icons from the the logo aspect. So let's add a random icon actually. Let's just add a random icon. This will just be 24. Let me lock this, change this to 24. And then I'm just going to center this properly. And then we're going to change this to regular. Well, let me leave it at medium though. But the text will be black this time around. All right, so now that we have that, that's another variant. So the next variant that we're going to have is, so let's change this to white. Let me not forget. And then we're going to have another variant. So this particular variant is not going to have any icon. But I want it to still maintain the same height for this. So this is 56. So automatically I'm going to change this manually to 56. And finally, I need something like this. So I'm just going to come and get this. I'm just going to copy it and paste this here. So I'm going to edit what we have inside. So what we currently have inside, I'm just going to change this text to like 10 and then change it to medium. And then we're going to change this icon to 8. So the icon will just change to 8. Then the padding, I just have like 8 all around that. So now I'm just going to create like a little ellipse there and just change it to 8, which will have like different colors of what we are trying to do. All right, so let me just change this to our success color and name this success. Whatever color comes first. So I think the success color came first. So I'm just going to change this to 8. All right, so let's drag this outside and make this a component with different variants. So let's name this status. And then make it a component. Create variants. And the variants will be probably pending. Let's name it pending. And finally, this will be cancelled. And this will be success. So now let's quickly change the colors and the text. So for this, we're just going to change it to success. And then we're going to change this to pending. And lastly, we're going to change this to cancelled. So I think this has like more length than the rest. So I just want them to be uniform. So everything will just have a width of like 80. Let me just change this to width of 80. All right, so let's quickly change the colors here. Oh no, this is not what I want to change. I want to change this. And then I want to change this also. So I'm going to copy this and paste to replace. So now that we have this, I'm just going to copy this and then drop it here. Let me just paste it here. then push it downwards, push it downwards, push it downwards. So I'm just going to duplicate this and then select this, add auto layout to it, remove the gap, then change this to the description. So I think the next one is like the description. So let's, so I have like 5 items. So now it's time to add auto layout to this. Yeah. So the gap was 24. Was that what I used? I think I used the 32 or so. Let's see what gap I used here. I want to maintain the same gap. So I used 24 there, so I'm just going to use 24 here also. And then this is going to be hog. Oh, there's no top and bottom padding. So let's add that. Or let's just reduce this to 4. I think it's much. Let's reduce this to 4. I think 4 looks perfect. So for the first description, I'm just going to change this to bots. ETH. So let me quickly edit that. And then the next thing, I'm going to change it to ETF purchase. And then we're going to have real estate income. All right, so we're going to change everything here to fill. It's already on fill, so we're going to now change this outward aspect to hog. All right, so now that we have this, I'm just going to duplicate this and select this, then add so now let's quickly change these logos. So let's change this to ETF logo. Oh no. So let's change this to ETH. Let's change this to Vanguard. Let's change this to this and this lastly. And this, I didn't add this, so let me just say stock sale. So now the next thing we're going to have is the dates. So for the dates, I don't think we need all this. So I'm just going to change this to when there is no icon to it. So I'm just going to quickly change it to dates. So I'm going to select this, paste, select this, paste, and select this pics. So I'm just going to change the details quickly. And then we're going to duplicate one more time. And then this one, we're going to name this amount. And for the amount, we're just going to put like minus 5K. And then for this, we're going to change it to plus 65. And we're going to change this to minus $200. I didn't add the dollar sign. And then lastly, we're going to have like plus 800. No, we're going to have minus, or let's change it to plus 800. And finally, we're going to have like the status. And then for the status, we're just going to change everything. So I'm going to change it to the final variant. And yep. So I'm going to change this to pending and change this to cancelled. Alright, so the next thing we're going to now do is to stretch the entire table. Let's change the table to fill. And each of this, we're going to change this to fill also. Alright, so I'm going to set a fixed value to this. Let's say like 240. This looks great. I think every other thing looks great. So for this, I think I'll just change this to center. Let's keep this at the center. Oh, it's better off the way it is actually. So yes. So let's quickly check that out and see how everything finally looks. So we're finally gotten to the end of this tutorial. So that's basically it for today. See you in my next tutorial.